Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter's Movie Reviews. Okay, today I want to talk about the newest true crime documentary on Netflix, The Investigation of Lucy Letby. I watched it last night. I went into this with absolutely no knowledge of this case whatsoever, which is the way that I like to go into a true crime documentary. I don't like to know a lot about the case because it's more interesting to me, and then I can also make my own conclusion. There are so many cases out there that I know so much about before I even watch the documentary, and I feel like the documentary has been done so many times. So I went into this last night. I have never read anything about this story. I've never watched any other documentaries. I don't know anything about this story other than what I watched in the documentary last night. So I went into this documentary last night and I had one person say something to me because I mentioned in one of my videos yesterday that I was going to watch this last night, and somebody said something to the effect of, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, but the AI imaging or whatever is a little overwhelming. So it was the only thing that I knew about this documentary, and that I knew that it was about a neonatal nurse that supposedly had killed these kids, but I didn't know anything more about it than that. So I went into it attempting to find this AI imagery because I thought it was just going to be like, what's the documentary series that came out on Netflix a couple years ago where it was like the animation, it was like the worst neighbor ever, the worst roommate ever, and in between it had all of the cartoonery, the ridiculousness of it. I hated that cartoon stuff. So I thought it was going to be something like that. I didn't even really know what they were talking about with the AI stuff. Okay, so if you haven't watched this documentary yet, to be honest with you, I don't know that I would really recommend it. I don't know that I wouldn't recommend it. This is just my reaction to it. It wasn't like, it's not going to be a documentary that I'm going to be talking about. The case might be a documentary, or the case might be a story that I'll be talking about from a year or two from now if more developments happen or somebody brings it up at a dinner or something like that. But it's not a super memorable documentary, because it's very confusing. Like, as a watcher, you don't even know, like, what to believe. So it's about this woman, and her name is Lucy Letby. And I believe it was in 2015, 2016, and she was a neonatal nurse at this hospital in the UK, and they had found that all of these infants had passed away. And so they were charting out to see, like, who was on shift at the time that these kids passed away, and they found out that Lucy Letby, who was very young at the time, she was like right out of nursing school, that she had been like at the hospital at the same time that every single one of these infants had died. And so they bring her in for questioning and all this kind of stuff. They arrest her or bring her in for questioning like 3 times. Every single time she's in bed. I don't know what this gal does when she's not a nurse, but apparently she journals like crazy and she sleeps all the time. Like every time they would go to, it's appropriate that I'm filming this in my bedroom because Lucy Letby likes to spend a lot of time in her bedroom. And that was kind of distracting to me. So a lot of the documentary is found footage, but really only found footage of the arrests. Apparently her parents are really pissed off about the found footage being included in the documentary. I don't really know why they're pissed off about it, honestly. I don't feel like it really adds anything to the documentary. I mean, it's like, it's not like it's invasive. It shows like kind of who she is really as a person, but it almost humanizes her to some degree. But every time they show her, she's like laying in bed. They go upstairs and they knock on her door. Her bedroom's a complete mess. Like there's just like shit everywhere. And it's like she's just laying in bed and they're like, Lucy, we have to arrest you. And she just kind of gets up. She's always in like sweats and a hoodie, and she just gets up out of bed and they arrest her. She doesn't really say a whole lot. I did see that afterwards, that the family's really upset that the found footage of the arrest is included. I don't really understand why. Maybe they're upset that well, I guess it wouldn't be found footage, it's cam footage. But also they show the interrogation of her. It doesn't show her in a bad light at all. Like it shows her as educated and knowledgeable about what she's talking about. I mean, I've seen so many of these documentaries where they show the interrogations and the questionings of, the people, and it makes them look really, really bad. I wouldn't say that it makes Lucy Letby look bad. It makes you even more confused because you're watching it and you're like, I don't know, she doesn't seem like she did it. So all these infants have died at this hospital. Now, apparently, after she left, there were no more infant mortalities at this hospital. But they also stopped taking certain kinds of cases. So that's something to note. So the documentary, I think, is like an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes, or something like that. Like the first 3/4 of it are all about these infant deaths and linking it to Lucy Letby. And then the last fourth of it is this attorney goes on this like talk show and they interview him, and so the expert witness that they use, this like doctor that they use for why he believes that Lucy Letby did it, that anyway, he explains the whole, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't watched it, but the way that she did it for all these kids, like injecting this like air into their system. So anyway, he got the theory basically from this book. So this lawyer's like, well, I'm not going to go to the guy that's reading the book, I'm going to go to the guy that writes the book. So he pulls the author, and the author's like investigates the case, and he's like, we found no murderers here. Basically, they do a press conference. Basically, that Lucy Letby isn't responsible. And if there's no murderers, then how can there be a murderer? Is basically how the whole documentary ends. So it's really not that conclusive. It's interesting to me because when I got done with it, I felt like this is a new, like I feel like this is the new wave of documentaries that we're seeing right now. We saw it with the Menendez brothers that are, they're up for appeal right now. We saw it with the Scott Peterson case. It's trying to like enter new information into the case. I feel like with a lot of these cases, and then I think they realize that like with the emergence of TikTok and online presence, and that really the court of public opinion weighs heavily a lot on these cases, because if people demand that these cases get, reopened, or there's a lot of enough public pressure that people will look into these cases. That was interesting to me that the parents were upset, because the documentary kind of leads you to think she didn't do it a little bit, or did she? Like, the problem with it is that there's so much conclusive evidence, like, well, they call it circumstantial evidence, obviously, but there's so much, to me, it was pretty conclusive. Like, she had journals, she would bring home papers in her pocket, she said, but I think it amounted to 250 different, like, discharge paperworks, or like notes that she was, chart notes that she would take. But they were also like documented paperwork, like on each patient. And then she kept them in like this file folder in her closet. She also kept these extensive journals that literally, like, they explained it looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, but like just with, paint spurted everywhere, but in writing. And you couldn't even, like, they showed a lot of the journal entries. You couldn't even understand what she was saying, but then there would be like hate and murder, and if they find out what I did, and, then they'll know how evil I am. Like, it made it look like it was a confession. And then in the garage, they found a trash bag full of, like, all these thrown away, like, journal entries and documents that was just more of the same. And the thing that was interesting was that every time she was asked about something specific to do with the medical issues, like, she would answer the question. But whenever she would, like, be asked something about the journal entries or whatever, she would say no comment. So I think she was, like, had wisened up to what could implicate her or whatever. So as a viewer of the documentary, you're kind of left, you have to make your own assumption about it, and I think that we bring in our own personal biases into these stories. The AI generated thing, I'll be honest with you, like, my friend and I were both watching it at the same time, and we were texting each other about it. I didn't even realize at first, this is kind of scary, honestly. I'm not a big fan of AI at all, okay? Not just in movies and documentaries, but, like, at all. I just am not a big fan of AI. Like, if there was something that has AI in it, it kind of, like, pushes me away. Had I known it was going to be such a big part of this documentary, I probably wouldn't have engaged in it. I didn't even realize it. This is how scary it is. I didn't even realize that it was AI at first. So there's two people that are interviewed. I think it's just two, but I could be wrong. It could be more, but I think it's just two. There's a best friend that she went to college with, or nursing school with, and then there's the mother of one of the infants that passes away, or is supposedly murdered. And they're interviewed. But it says up in the corner, like, for anonymity reasons, it's like, whatever, in disguise. I don't know, to be honest with you, as somebody that grew up in the generation of, like, talk shows where, like, people had, like, bad wigs on and their faces were faded out, I almost would kind of prefer that, like, sitting behind a screen, than this. Because it kind of, I feel like the AI of it makes you lean a certain way. And to be honest with you, I didn't even realize it at first. Like, I knew there was AI in the documentary because somebody had said it to me. But when I was watching it, I think the first person they show is the mother of the infant that passes away. And I didn't even realize it was AI. And so my friend and I are watching at the same time, and she texted me and she's like, this AI is so bad. And I go, what's the AI? And she said, and then I took a screenshot of it and sent it to her, and she's like, yeah, can't you tell with the hair? I really couldn't, to be honest with you. And that was kind of what was so scary to me. Now, when you're talking about a true crime documentary where I don't know, like, I did notice towards the end that the mouthing of the AI creation didn't match the mouthing of what was being said. So I think that like they recorded what was said by the real person and then the AI image like goes over it. I don't know. For me, I would have just rather seen pictures, and because I feel like in a true crime documentary, I'm somebody that's all about facts, okay? One of the things that I absolutely cannot stand with true crime is when people want to speculate stuff about this. Like, with the whole Chris and Shanann Watts thing that I was, heavy into a couple of years ago, and then I just am not a big Family Annihilator person, so I had to just like, it just was so sad to me. But I would watch, reactions, and people would say, they would speculate of things about Shanann Watts and why she had this job, and Shanann Watts did this because possibly. I think like that's dangerous when we're talking about elements of true crime. I think we have to stick to the facts and also be honoring the victims. So now that we have a true crime documentary, first of all, that's left inconclusive, okay? Now, she has been charged with the murders of 7 infants and attempted murder murder of 7 other infants. Okay, and they said at the end of it that they were going to come back and charge her with other things, but they're not going to, that they decided that they weren't going to. I think they know because they don't really have that hard of a case. They also said that her defense didn't call any expert witnesses. I'm not really sure why that is. The end of it, like when they put up like before the credits, like where she's at today, they don't say any of that. They don't say like her family. They don't say any of that stuff. It's really fast. Like I had to pause it to read it. Which made me kind of think, like, is this another, like, cry for... If this is done from the public's point of view to, like, get Lucy Letby to have another, like, hearing or trial, I don't know why the family would be so upset about the footage of her being arrested in her home. To me, honestly, that was one of the most interesting parts of it. But the AI of it all, in all honesty, watching a true crime documentary really turned me off. Because I was like... Like I said, I'm not a person that likes AI anyway. I don't get real worked up about it. But I would have rather had just like a voiceover with pictures, or because they do show pictures of this girl. They block her face out going to school with her, and they show her like out and stuff like that. I would have rather had that with her voiceover, or like the mother just like they show her at one point. And she's like in a baby's room holding up baby's clothes and stuff like that, and you can't see her face. I would have rather had that and had her talk over it. I don't know, because for me then when I realized that this was the AI part of it, which I knew that going into it, I have a feeling a lot of people probably watched it. It's right up in the corner. It says like anonymity disguised or whatever. I think it's real easy to miss. And so then you think that's the person. Well, I feel like that's leading of the story a lot. And that to me in true crime is like... When I watch true crime and people come up with like I don't love creative narrative in true crime. Like we need to stick to the facts, right? And yes, these were these people's true testimonies, but at the same time, like the emotions on their face and stuff were not. Like I don't know, it just was digitally animated, and I didn't like. After I knew that, like every part that came on, and it took it away from me because the mother's story of this one infant. She's the one infant that Lucy Letby does not remember. She remembers every other infant she worked with except for this one. And so the whole story, they don't interview any other infants' families, just this one. And her mother is like through the entire thing. And at the very end, they show her like, they share that she and her husband have a son now. And they show them walking off into a field together. Well, it's all AI. I don't know. For me, it just took it away from me. I just was like... It was weird. So you're left with this whole thing. You're like, well, here's this gal, first of all, that seems like she is so on it as a nurse. Like when they're interviewing her, she knows literally everything, okay? And knows the processes, knows the procedures, and just happens to, like, I guess, be there. I was so convinced the first half that she absolutely did it. But then they're like, she didn't have a motive. But there was a part of her that when you're watching it, she just seems so very cold. The part that really got me, honestly, as an animal lover is when they arrest her, I think it's the second time, and she knows she's probably not coming back. Well, the first time they just take her in for a questioning. The second time, she knows she's not coming back, and she says, can I say goodbye? I think it's the second time. She says, can I say goodbye to my cat? And she picks up the cat and hugs it. That, like, kind of broke my heart. But even then, that's really the only emotion you saw. Like, she comes across in the interviews, and I don't know if it was because she was scared. Like, she does cry a lot, like she's scared. But even when she's outside, like her mom, you can hear her mom crying in the background, and And she's like, Mom, just go back inside and stuff like that. Like, it's very apparent that she knows what this is about before it even happens. I don't know. It's just like the weirdness of it all, of her just kind of like being in bed all the time. Every time they come, she's always just in bed. And they're like, do you want to put some shoes on? And she's kind of just like walking around this room. I don't know. Like, it's so counter to like who she presents herself to be in this nurse in this hospital. I don't know. It was bizarre. It was a very bizarre documentary. And then like so much of the evidence that they present against her, like even though they call it circumstantial, is pretty convincing. I mean, it really is. Like these journal entries, like they ask her, why were you keeping these journal entries? Like I can understand, like she had like in this date book, okay? She had written down like initials of the baby that died, but it would be like a day that like maybe the baby hadn't died, but something had happened to it, but just the initials. Like I could understand in a journal her writing, it's really hard to be a neonatal nurse. Like one of the things they bring up is her texting like one of her coworkers about how hard it is. I would think that that would be normal, right? But all of it together, like her bringing the notes home, the journal entries, the appointment book, it's like all of it together. But I would understand if like her journal entry was like, this being a neonatal nurse is so much harder than I thought it would be. These babies that are dying, like I can't handle it emotionally. I don't know what to do. But her just writing in her date book, like the initials, was very creepy, strange to me. I don't know, like that kind of sent chills to me. But she's stood by her innocence all this time. She's never come out and anyway. And I think they're trying to reopen the case. You're kind of left at the end of it, like what happened? I don't know. Like the question is, do you think she did it or do you think she didn't do it? Now all these people are coming out and they're like, free Lucy Letby and blah, 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 whatever. Because the guy that wrote the book says there were no murders. And I'll be honest with you, that part kind of confused me a lot. It was about like the discoloration of the skin of the infants. And basically what he was saying was it was all related to one thing. And the other doctor was saying that, well, every child had different issues with why they were there. It wasn't like they all had the same issue, which totally made sense to me. But a lot of the medical stuff was kind of confusing to me. So I usually get that kind of stuff. I don't know. It felt like they tried to like hurry that part of it up. Anyway, it leaves you pretty... I'd be really interested to know what you guys think. If you think that she did it, if she didn't do it, if you've watched it, let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.